for our worship team real quick. They sounded amazing this morning. Worship is one of my favorite times to just be in the presence of the Lord, and we all get to do that together. Speaking of being together, we just got back from break. We were on Thanksgiving break for a week, and can I just say, I had so much fun on it. I hope y'all did too. I missed y'all so much. I hope y'all's break was filled with family, fun, laughter. I know for me, I went on a boat a lot with my friends. We weren't going to look for places to hunt. But we went to the bay one night, and I thought we were going to die, actually. Like, we thought we were going to get our boat stuck. We thought we were going to get eaten by an alligator. Kelly and Briley were actually texting me while I was on this boat, and they were like, where are you? Like, they sent a picture of my location. They're like, why are you in the middle of the water? Like, are you going to die? Are you okay? And I was like, I'm good. Just gotta go. Talk to y'all later. I'm safe. I made it. I didn't die. I didn't get eaten by an alligator. I am here. And I'm here with all of you guys again, and I've missed y'all so much. Speaking of being back from school, we have something really important coming up. Midterms. Y1s, y'all have 2 midterms tomorrow. Y'all have New Testament survey and hermeneutics with Miss Hannah. So be studying. Y'all got this. I know y'all do. Y2s, y'all were supposed to have a soteriology one tomorrow. But Pastor Danny has thankfully moved it to Monday, December 4th. So please study for it. Y'all got this? Y'all got this. I believe in y'all. And for Y2s, all your other midterms will start next week as well. This Wednesday, we have the opportunity to have our second outreach day of the year so far. We've only had 2. We're partnering with our outreach department, we are going to be making prison packs from 9 a.m. to 12. We get to show the love to this community that oftentimes gets forgotten and neglected and pushed aside, but we get to show them Christ through us. So we're just going to help out that team, again, from 9 a.m. to 12, making...
Good morning, CHC and Student Chapel. First, I want to point out the people that are here. My mom, my brother. Zach is here, all my CHC classmates are here. Pastor Dan and Miss Trisha, of course. All the alumni back there, Miss Hannah. And I just want to thank y'all for coming out. This is the first chapel that I'm going to be able to speak this year. And it just means a lot. This message that we're speaking today comes at a great time, coming from Thanksgiving break and then going into winter break in 3 weeks, which is about rest and Sabbath, which I'm sure as college students we all know how to rest and sleep, Jeremiah. But first, I want to talk a little bit about myself. A lot of you know I was homeschooled. And a lot of that comes with being out of current culture or shy or awkward. All of those things true. And something I'm incredibly gifted at, and my mom will always be able to say, this is very true, is I'm incredibly gifted at taking breaks. And like I would do an hour's worth of school and take an hour long break. And then I would walk out of my room, take my break. My mom would go, it's been 5 minutes, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I don't know, I thought it was an hour's worth of school. I'd put as much effort as I can into like that 5 minutes that I thought was an hour and spend 5 hours on a break and 30 minutes doing school, which soon I would regret that she told me that. She would say, hey, you're gonna regret this when you graduate, you're gonna have to like do a bunch of work. And shocker, you were right. But how does this fit in with like a Sabbath or even like rest? First, I'm going to talk about what the 2 words mean. Sabbath is the holy appointed celebration of rest, and rest is peace, ease, or refreshment. And when me talking about breaks is I would try to refresh my mind, but I never actually took a real break. I never took a celebration of rest. I would just, watch YouTube or whatever if I could, or do whatever I wanted for that hour-long break. But we need to know what true rest and true Sabbath actually means. And I'm going to show you a picture here in a second here, but I'm sure college students, like people who've been in church for a while, have heard of Sabbath, and they know what Sabbath is. but there's a difference between knowing what it is and understanding it and actually being able to apply it. Being able to say, hey, I know what this is, but I know how to do it. So if you throw that picture up, I'm sure this is very hard. I know the very basics of how a plane works. I know there's gas there somewhere, and I know that something goes up and down and left and right. But I can tell you, I can know the basics of that, but I would need someone right beside me to show me how to do it and show me how to fly that plane. Because if I was in there by myself and I wanted to go to North Carolina, I would be dead in like 10 minutes, maybe less. And we need to be able to take that knowledge of rest and that knowledge of Sabbath and be able to understand it and apply it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And the meaning of Sabbath is, like, we're going to be using the word rest for the meaning of Sabbath. It's a lot easier to say, and I don't want to say the word Sabbath 100 times in the next 20 minutes. Now, just resting in itself, that peace, that ease, that refreshment, it's not helpful unless it's healthy. Which brings me to that first point, which is unhealthy rest is terminal. And not like an airport terminal, the word terminal is ultimately leading to death. And in Exodus 31:13, it says, "Say to the Israelites, you must observe my Sabbaths. This will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so that you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy. Observe the Sabbath because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it is to be put to death. Those who do any work on that day must be cut off from their people. For 6 days' work is to be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of Sabbath rest. Holy to the Lord, whoever does any work on the Sabbath day is to be put to death." If only we knew how serious the holy day of rest was. We would be doing so much to keep that day holy, keep that Sabbath, make sure we're spending it the right way. And when I was researching this, and when that thought came to mind of unhealthy Sabbath, I asked myself, I'm like, what makes rest unhealthy? And there's three points from many things that I could say about it. But my main three, the first one is, how long do we rest? God says that on the seventh day. So he took 6 days to work, and then took that last day just to step back and see his creation and see what he's done. He didn't take his eyes off of it while he rested, but he looked back and he understood. He saw the workmanship that he had done throughout that week. And we experienced the fullness of being able to do no work with that last day, because we already have everything done with those 6 other days. And the second question is, how do we use the rest? Are we going to use it to catch up on sleep? Are we going to sit in our living room watching Netflix for 8 hours? Are we going to, try to catch up on just hanging out with friends? Which, of course, God says do nothing on the Sabbath. But that doesn't mean we can do nothing on those other 6 days. So we can spend time with family on that 7th day. Or even just be able to just sit in his presence and soak in his presence, read his word, or pray. And the third question is, why are we resting? We often rest to cleanse our minds, to cleanse our bodies, to say, I've worked for so long, for 6 days straight. I've had work for 6 days straight, I just need to be able to chill and rest. But when we don't keep that Sabbath, that day where we're praying, where we're doing nothing, but we're praying and we're receiving God's word, if we're not doing any of that, that's not a Sabbath. It's a day off. It's something that we do when we wake up and we're like, hey, I have a lot to do in the house. I have to do homework, I have to do school, I have to mow the lawn. But if we do any of that, we do all of that before on the 6th day, and on that 7th day, we can truly celebrate that day of rest, that 7th day of hey, I did all of this work and I can sit in the 7th day. I can sit in the Sabbath day, I can praise, I can worship, I can just sit in his presence and look back on the things I've done. And this thing that we need to do work, or we create it as a day off, creates an unhealthy view of what a Sabbath is. I think we need to have a proper rest so that our Sabbath doesn't end up being a deathbed for for our faith. And this brings me to my second point. If we have a healthy rest, we need to have a healthy lifestyle. But an unhealthy lifestyle brings an unhealthy rest. And the way we show our free time throughout the week shows how we spend our Sabbath. I think that if we're not taking any alone time with God or spending those extra gaps in our calendar to spend time with God, then we are truly just going to spend nothing on that Sabbath, on that seventh day. Whether it's Saturday or Friday, we're just going to spend that day to catch up on things or just do nothing and not experience His presence at all. And so we won't make any sort of effort to focus on Him during that one day of rest. And in 1 Chronicles 16:11, it says, "Seek the Lord in His strength, seek His face continually, longing to be in His presence." And the Message version it says, "Seek His presence day and night." And when we seek His presence day and night, every day, how precious is that Sabbath going to be? How much better will that Sabbath be on that seventh day? When we look back and say, "Well, I spent so much time talking to God. I spent so much time in His presence so that I can see Him more in that seventh day." And when I was younger, I played a lot of video games, and that would be like my rest. I would play games, I would take that as my day off. I didn't understand Sabbath, I didn't understand rest. I was really good at video games, and I would do it all from doing the things that I had to do before I could actually rest and take that Sabbath or even just play those games. And it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to do nothing. When you have so much work to do and actually be able to sit in the presence and say, "Hey, I've done nothing. I can do nothing today because I've already done so much." It takes that effort. Which brings me to my last point, which is healthy rest requires effort. And I never thought talking about rest or sleeping would be in the same sentence as effort. But when we take a Sabbath, we're doing no work, which means we have to finish that work that we had to do that week already. God did 6 days straight of work, like I said, and took that seventh day to just look back and see His whole creation that He had worked on. And when we allow ourselves to make time for God, it takes effort. We have to see what God's doing in our lives. We have to see the things we have to do. We have to see everything and actually do them before that seventh day so that we can take that rest. So that we can look back on it, like I said, just being able to see it and say, "I can step back now and see what I've done throughout the week, so that I can celebrate this rest." And in Jeremiah, it emphasizes what the Exodus said about this punishment of death and how crucial it is to take this rest. It says, "Tell the kings and all the people of Judah and everyone who lives in Jerusalem and enters these gates to listen to what I say. Tell them that if they love their lives, they must not carry any load on the Sabbath. They must not carry anything in through the gates of Jerusalem or carry anything out of their houses on the Sabbath. They must not work on the Sabbath. They must observe it as a sacred day, as I commanded their ancestors. Their ancestors did not listen to me or pay any attention. Instead, they became stubborn and would not obey me or learn from me." And these verses really show how crucial it is to keep that Sabbath holy. Because if we're in Exodus, it's about, I'd say like 1800 BC, somewhere around that area, and then you go all the way to Jeremiah, it's about a 600-year difference. So if it's so crucial to do it then why is it, and it's so crucial to do it now there, then why isn't it so crucial to take that Sabbath and make it holy now? I think we often see it as like an old thing. We see it as, "Oh, that's then. That's cultural. They don't have a Sabbath rule that is like that has a death penalty." But when we look at this death penalty now, it's not a death like a physical death or a death of our own life, but it's a death of our joy, of our peace, clarity, kindness, self-control. We see when we can't step back and look at the things that like God has done within that week, then we're going to just be dead. We're going to be on that deathbed. We're not going to see any of it. And when we can take that rest, when we can and be able to see the thing that He's done, we gain all of that back. We see this joy. We see these fruits of the Spirit just start to grow. And the small things that keep us from like taking the Sabbath, when we can take those days, those small moments, these 10 minutes, these 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, and be able to see and just be able to spend time with the Lord. When you take 10 minutes out of your week for those 6 days, by the time you get to that 7th day, you spend a whole extra hour with the Lord. You're actually able to see a bigger impact on what your Sabbath is truly going to look like, because you actually see Him working. When you take a step back, you're actually able to see, hey, like, I didn't blow up on my coworker, or I didn't create conflict with my sister, or whatever. And when you see those things happen, you see that crucial impact of how big that picture is, because that you're not going to look at your sister and be like, I'm sorry I did that. Like, he stepped you away from that, and you're like, I didn't blow up on that person. I didn't almost lose my job because that person annoyed me. I was able to have this peace because I took a step back, and I was able to allow Him to step in and take me away from that moment. And this is where small changes lead to this big impact. And when we make these small changes, we understand that these gaps make a huge impact. If we can spend 10 minutes in our schedule in the morning and then 10 minutes at night, even waking up earlier, going to bed just a little bit later, opening your schedule, you're actually able to see how crucial the Sabbath is at the end. And I want to ask you, where are you putting your effort into so that you can have faith-filled Sabbath? Is it going to be whether it's taking time in your study block just to like read your word or pray, or is it going to be in a break at work, or is it just going to be in the mornings when you wake up or when you go to bed? Where can you find those moments to fill your week so that you can have that Sabbath and make it holy? And I'm going to go into a moment of like reflection for the students, or even just everyone here, like the past week. Like, what can you do, or what did you do in the past week where a lot of us had break? Where have you spent that time? Where have you been able to look back and say, I spent time with the Lord here when I didn't think I was going to? And for CSC, I think for these next couple of weeks, especially with Christmas break, winter break coming up, how can you make that time? How can you fit that into your schedule? How can you maintain that schedule of seeing God? I just want you to pray over that and reflect over that today as we end, and be able to understand and ask God for this time, for God to move in us. So let's go into that time of worship here.